I wonder, what do you think education is for? There we go, there's a big question. Well, you can throw some things out if you want to. What do you think education is for?
To learn.
To learn? Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah, preparation for life. Yeah, to learn, preparation for life. Any other thoughts?
To meet the challenges of living.
Yeah, to meet the challenges of living. So some practical things as well. Yeah.
To socialise with other people and learn how to socialise.
Yeah, absolutely. Education is also about learning to get along with other people. Yeah, to be in a community. Yeah, yeah. Is it important? Yeah. I mean, I just stopped to think, how many things would I not know what to do if it hadn't been for the education that I've been through in various spheres? And you just come down to the very basic ones, like, I know how to read and write. I can't count very well, but I can do a bit of counting. I've had to do, over the summer, my sabbatical has involved a fair bit of woodwork, which I'm not particularly good at, but I'm very grateful for the woodwork classes that I had at my secondary school. And if you reflect, you think of all the things I know because I had the privilege of an education. Education is incredibly significant, incredibly important. It's where we learn the skills that we need for life. It's also something that can very easily be abused. And through history, we've seen times when governments have used education as a way to indoctrinate people. So something the church needs to be aware of, encouraging and speaking out on. And although as Baptists we don't have lots of church schools, we know that there are other Christian denominations that have really committed themselves heavily to education. Globally, the situation is a pretty mixed one. And you probably don't need me to tell you that across the world there is huge disparity, inequality in the access to education. UNICEF say that globally 600 million children, it's a number that's too big even to comprehend, that's 10 times the population of the United Kingdom. Globally, 600 million children are unable to gain minimum levels of proficiency in reading and mathematics, even though many of them go to school. And that's not to say that they're not very bright or their teachers aren't very good. It's often the impact of their circumstances upon them. So there are many children who, for instance, cannot afford to have a computer or broadband at home, which certainly in this country is becoming increasingly significant for education. There are children who are desperately affected by poverty, and they're not well nourished enough to really be able to learn well. There are children who are affected by natural disaster, or in schools where the resources are just not adequate to teach children well. All these things affect children's ability to learn. And today we could think particularly of Kate in West Africa, teaching children some basic skills. And I was thinking, is Liz Bulkley, is she back in Pakistan?
Yes, she is.
Yeah? So we could... Thank you. So we could think of Liz back in Pakistan too, contributing to school life out there. And as the BMS World Mission reminded us this week, in some countries, girls particularly are excluded from education. They highlighted the plight of girls and young women in education who, when the Taliban took over the country, were literally, their schools were closed and young women were thrown out of the universities. And for a young woman, a girl in Afghanistan, to seek to change their life through education is actually an incredibly dangerous thing for them to do. It puts their life at risk if they're found to be trying to educate themselves. So the global situation needs lots of thought and prayer. And then here in Exeter, we have ICE, Initiative in Christian Education. something that we support. And you may know that ICE, through their staff and volunteers, do assemblies in Exeter schools and in the schools around Exeter. They sometimes run lunch clubs. They're involved in things like the Christian Union at Exeter College. They'll sometimes go in and do special RE lessons. And as we heard with our younger folk, this is a big time of year. Some starting school for the first time, many having new teachers, some having to think about transitions already from primary to secondary. I haven't got time to read it out, but I'll leave it in the hall afterwards. David very kindly shared with me the letter that Abraham Lincoln wrote to his child's teacher, his son's teacher, on the first day that he started school, an indication that things haven't changed and parents still remain very anxious as their children start school. I particularly ask us to pray for children making that transition and to pray for their worker, Jess, who has just started with them as she begins her work with schools. And if you're interested, there is a service at 7 p.m. tonight at Belmont Chapel, which ICE are involved in and which focuses on education. Now, here's a tough question. Who can tell me the name of the Secretary of State for Education? Hard, isn't it? Because, of course, it's just changed.
Is it Bridget Phillipson?
I think Sally deserves a round of applause for that. That is brilliant. I confess I had to look it up, and I'm a university chaplain, to my shame. The Right Honourable Bridget Phillipson MP is the new Secretary of State for Education, and goodness me, does she need some prayer, because she has some very, very significant, complex and difficult issues on her desk. Well, let me just finish by saying a bit about the university scene, because that's also part of education. And as you know, my weekday job involves the privilege of being a chaplain in higher education at the University of Exeter. Nationally, it's a challenging time for universities. You'll have probably heard in the news that there has been a significant fall in the number of international students. That's for lots of reasons, without wanting to get too political. The last government was not seen to be too friendly to international students. And also there is just simply more competition globally. Other universities globally are recognising this is a market they want to get in on. International students bring a huge boost to university finances, but they also bring incredible richness to university campuses and the opportunity for us to share some of the values that we hold very dear. And when we use that phrase of John Wesley's, "The world is my parish," I tell you, I feel that at the university. And this last week I've met students from India, China, Japan, other nations as well. You may know that students now work with having to get a loan to pay their fees, and the annual fee is currently £9,250. It has not risen, that figure has not risen since 2017. And you think of the inflation that we have had in the last 6 years. And so universities are saying it's not enough. It's not enough. Almost certainly we're going to have to look very soon at how we fund our universities. Some universities are asking about how they're going to sustain themselves. And then linked with that is the cost of living crisis has affected students just as much as anybody else. I know we often have this perception that students are well off. I can tell you it's not true for many. Maybe true for some, but not for all by any means. Students also get a loan, as well as getting a loan to pay their fees, they get a loan to pay their maintenance, so their living costs, accommodation, food, all the rest of it. The maintenance loan has not kept up with inflation. And so it's acknowledged now that the maintenance loan that students get will not be enough. So increasingly students are having to either go without meals, use food banks or food larders, and many are having to work significant hours in part-time jobs. And all of that has quite a big impact on their mental health and their studies, of course. Here at Exeter, of course, we're preparing for our students to arrive. We're looking forward to that. It's an anxious and exciting time. As staff, we're looking forward to welcoming them, teaching them or ensuring their well-being. And in chaplaincy, we particularly value your prayers. It's a big transition for us. A lot of students who we knew moved on last year, so we're waiting to see who will replace them this year. And I don't have pictures to share yet. I will share some pictures hopefully next time. In October, our new faith centre, the new multi-faith centre at the heart of the campus, the Streatham campus, will open, and we will transition to working within that. And some of you may know that the St. Luke's Chapel on the St. Luke's campus has also just gone through a big refurbishment. That opens next week. So please pray for us as we prepare for those big changes.